Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Tea, Tentacles, and Talk Cozy Conversations about LGBTQ plus romance. I'm your host, Chloe Archer, and today I have with me the delightful Amanda Meuwissen, who also happens to live here in Minnesota, just like me. So first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Amanda. Amanda Meuwissen is a native Minnesotan and queer author of primarily MM or gay romance, with some M/NB non-binary characters dabbling in every subgenre from fantasy to paranormal to horror and more. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yes, I'm delighted. I'm delighted. Um, I don't know if you brought a beverage with you at all. What have you got with you
Yeah.
today?
I poured myself a glass of
Ooh,
wine because it's been a long day, but also you must
excellent.
see tentacles.
That's amazing. Oh my
There
God, I
you
have to get
go.
one of those. That is so cool. Did
It's
you
it's funny
have
that
it
I put
made?
no, this is actually one that I got. It's from a Wisconsin brewery called
Ooh.
Octopi.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
I actually had
cool.
two. I had a different shape of one that had a purple one because in some
Mm.
of my books I have one octopus creature that kind of has periwinkle tentacles and one that kind of has silvery. And so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
great, they can have one of these.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That,
I need to go back and like buy out any kind of glasses they have because it's just
oh
such a
my
perfect little
gosh.
tentacle.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna after the show, I'm gonna have to get details on this place to see if I could go check them out. But yes, I've got I don't know, how do I describe this? So it's like I discovered this, it's a Korean, you get like a jar of it and it's like, preserved yuzu in honey. And then you add water to it and it's like this lovely kind of citrusy, slightly sweet, like herbal kind of hot drink or whatever. I find it really like soothing and it's very nice on the throat when it's kind of, scratchy or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah.
with all this weather changes too, I need
I
more tea and
know.
coating and
Oh, for sure. Yes, Minnesota, like March and April, I call second winter. Like it's not quite
Mhm.
spring. It's like you'll get these days where it's like in the 70s and then it's back in the 30s. And there's
We
snow
had
and there's
snow.
rain and there's
We
well,
had
we had
snow. What was
hail.
that? Saturday morning? Oh, you had
Right.
hail
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, we had hail. It was so the joys of Minnesota, but we do love it here.
We do, we do.
So, Amanda, I always love to ask authors when I have them on the show if they can tell me a little bit about kind of their writing journey. I am coming up on my fourth publiversary this September. And, I feel I still kind of consider myself comparatively new. Like there are people who've been doing this like 10 plus years, sometimes way longer. So I always love to hear people's sort of journeys. Were you kind of somebody who always knew that you wanted to write? How did little Amanda get to be where she is today in terms of her fiction writing career?
Well, I always knew I had to write. Like I loved storytelling. That was always a big thing for me. You know, I was the kid who wanted to go off and play with imaginary friends and things like that. And if I was on the playground, it wasn't just, oh, we're on the swings. We have to be making up a story and we're acting something out. You know, that was very much me. And actually, speaking of acting, that was kind of where I couldn't quite decide for a while. Did I want to
Ooh.
pursue acting or did I want to pursue writing? Because I loved both
Mm.
so much. And it was actually fan fiction that made the decision for me. Because like a lot of people, I got my start young, writing fan fiction
Mm.
because it's an easy gateway drug,
Oh,
as you might say, for
sure.
writing.
Yeah.
And I had written something that was kind of like heavy material, like really emotional stuff. And one of the anonymous reviewers let me know how much it affected them and helped them when
Mm.
they were having a really tough time. And hearing that, you know, when myself was what, 14 and 15,
Yeah.
it's like I can affect someone so much that I change their outlook, even if it only lasts for a day. Like
Right.
that to me, I mean, of course, acting can do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
From that moment, I was like, nope, that's my decision. Like even when I was applying for colleges early at
Mm.
that point, I was like, yep, I'm going to be pursuing English creative writing, all of that,
Mm.
and I stuck to it. Publishing wise, though, it was a much longer journey because
Sure.
it's tough out there, right? I
Hmm.
actually started with this little indie publisher. And I was actually their managing editor for several years.
Oh,
So I was like the submission editor, which I love
yeah.
that side of things too. I
Mm,
love editing and reading other people's work. And so I wasn't doing as much promoting of my stuff at the time, but
yeah.
technically, I have been published for 13 years because my
Wow.
baby little novella, which was not queer romance of any sort, it was more just like a little horror murder mystery type thing,
Mm,
was way back in 2012. But I kind of consider myself to have like a born again publiversary in
okay.
2019. That's because that was the year when it was like, okay, I was working with a publisher at that point, a different publisher than the indie one. I was finally starting to grow like a readership and
Yeah.
followers like on social media and things like that,
Mm,
building my networking with other authors. So it just felt like it was a totally different world. Like my focus was different.
yeah.
But I've actually been full time now since 2021. So I'm coming up on
Wow.
5 years of full time.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the crazier milestone. It's nuts. And I really
Yeah.
am pretty much fully self-published now. I went
Mm.
hybrid for a while and then fully
Mm.
transitioned.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like, were you sort of hybrid with an indie press and then sort of the self-pub stuff, or was it like a bigger trad publisher?
It was still indie. Well, it depends on how you look at it, I guess. They were bigger.
Mm.
There's controversy around this publisher. So
Oh,
maybe I don't.
okay.
Anybody
No
who's in
worries.
the industry knows who I'm talking about,
Yes,
probably.
I suspect I
On our
know.
side.
Yep.
Which, I didn't know that there were any issues with this publisher when I was working with them. And I actually never had any issues personally.
Yeah.
Um, but I would send them certain things and they picked up a few of my early series. And when they
Mm.
didn't accept something, at
Yeah.
first I was trying to send it to a different indie press. And
Hmm.
sometimes it'd get accepted. But when it
Yeah.
didn't, it's like, well, I'm not going to just give up because these two said no. I know a little bit more now about the industry and what's going on. So I
Yeah.
started testing the waters with like short stories and
Mm.
one-offs with self-publishing.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
over time, especially once my early series started finishing, over time, I just realized I was making more money off my self-published titles. So why share any of it with anyone?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
No,
I
I mean,
just
I think.
taught myself how to do all the ins and outs, the interior formatting and things like that, which made it easier.
Right. Well, and I think now there are so many more tools than there
Yeah.
were even, 5, 10 years ago to make it much easier. Whether we're talking Atticus or Vellum or, some other entity, it's very easy now to do the formatting and other stuff. It's just a matter of training yourself. But honestly, I think even the folks who are not the most technologically savvy can figure most of those programs out. They're pretty user friendly, I've found anyway.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I guess, can you tell me a little bit about, since the publishing market is a fickle beast, right? Like it's not consistent. I always talk to people who are thinking about getting into it, and I say it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? Like you've got to really pace yourself. There's going to be periods where you're moving faster, periods where you're slowing down. Things change. There's dips and valleys, things like that. And certainly a lot of this can be affected by the economy and other factors that are going on. So, how do you make sort of full-time writing sustainable and sort of livable, I guess?
I think a big thing for me is the differentiation. Like I am Kindle exclusive. I found that
Okay.
that works for me. I don't
Mm,
do wide release. I've dabbled in it, and I
yeah.
just found that having things on Kindle Unlimited is more beneficial for me.
Yeah.
The big thing I always tell everybody though is, unfortunately, there is no right answer. Everyone's going to have a different story about
Yeah.
what works for them, and you just have to
Sure.
try it all until you find out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's about having other places, other types of way of selling things. So like I have my Etsy shop
Yeah.
for signed copies, audio books. I
Mm.
do a lot of events throughout the year. And so
Yes.
in-person selling is really a big thing for me
Mm.
too.
Mm.
Because that's how I've done a lot of networking as well, where I now have indie bookstores who reach out to me and who
Oh,
carry my
nice.
books. And so
Yeah.
I'm also doing like either consignment or wholesale with them. So it's like
Mm.
having different avenues besides whether you're wide release or not, having other
Mhm.
places where you're bringing in revenue is
Yeah.
really how you make it work. And then
Right.
the backlog, right? I've been doing
Yeah.
this for the marathon, not
Yeah.
the sprint. I've been doing
Hmm.
this long enough. that I have
Yeah.
enough of a backlog that
Yeah.
even now, I've kind of been reviving the ones that I took my rights back for
Oh,
and
nice.
re-releasing them with new
Yeah.
covers. So it's kind of
Right.
like they're new. They're not going to have as
Yeah.
much traction as if they were really new, but
Sure.
it still helps.
Yeah, yeah. No, backlist is king. I think that like a lot of authors who've been doing this, like veterans, will tell you for sure. Um, yeah, I think that so many things kind of change over time. Like what has really kind of like stuck with you in terms of things that have evolved or changed for good or for bad in the past like 13 years that you've been doing this?
For me, a big part of it was, well, finding that network, right, of other authors. Because, of
Mm,
course, in the last, geez, how many years now? 5+ years even, we've
yeah.
seen this rise in multi-author collaborations. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that because it kind
Mm-hmm.
of almost makes me think of when you were
Yeah.
like dealing with, your fan fiction communities, because we're reading each other's books and we're
Yeah.
helping promote each other's works. And sometimes we might be playing in a shared universe, sometimes just thematically linked. But I
Right.
love that extra community aspect of it. Like,
Hmm.
unless it totally crashes someday and readers stop wanting it, I hope I
Right.
always have at least one every year, if not
Yeah.
more, because it's just a lot of fun to be able to do
Hmm.
that mixed in with my just sort of separate standalone
Hmm.
releases.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's been really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that can be a really great place for especially like sometimes newer authors to get opportunities to work with people who've been doing it a bit longer to kind of network and just gain more experience because I think I definitely ascribe to the philosophy that like having some writer community is really important to making it sustainable. I'm sure maybe there are some people out there who are very much like, I can lone wolf it the whole way. I'm not really one of them. Like I get a lot of kind of like you were talking about also with like the fanfic. I thrive a lot on like positive feedback, right?
Mhm,
When
mhm.
whether it's from other authors or from readers or whatever, like when I hear I'm doing something that like is making people happy or has had an impact on them, that really motivates me. I guess everybody's motivational triggers are slightly different, but I do think that having community makes you feel also a lot less like alone in the void as a writer. So what are some things that you do to kind of like establish writing community for yourself?
Well, it started back with all the Facebook stuff, but honestly, I feel like the Facebook groups are slowing down, right? And that's mainly the
Yeah,
algorithm's fault, right? We're not
yeah,
seeing each other's posts as
I
much.
know.
I want to get into the Discord side of things more,
Mm,
but it's hard for my brain to wrap around the like, these conversations will go and there's so much I've missed, and then it feels overwhelming to catch up.
yes.
And so it's like, oh, that's tough. It's like, how do I? So honestly, partly doing the collaborations, then it's a smaller group that are sometimes talking,
Yeah.
whether it's
Hmm.
a Instagram chat group or a Facebook one or
Hmm.
whatever. It's a little
Yeah.
easier when it's small. When it's bigger, I
Hmm.
feel like I kind of get lost in it.
Oh,
Um,
sure. Yeah.
it's just hard not to. But that's another reason why I like doing with events. I like doing panels
Mm.
and things like that
Oh,
because
yeah.
then it's like I'm at this event with other authors and we're having a conversation that might spark us to keep communicating down the line when we're
Hmm.
not at the event or decide that we want to do like future panels or events together. And
Right.
that's really where I kind of look. I do love that like in-person real touch to things where I
Yeah.
can have it.
Hmm.
But otherwise, I feel like we're in a bit of a crossroads right now where it's like, where's that next like
Hmm.
big boom of collaboration going to be as Facebook feels a little bit less like the place? Not
Right.
to say it's not.
Right.
I still post and do things there,
Oh,
but
sure.
things are
Sure.
so shifting and there's so many sometimes that it's like, where should I hang my hat to make sure I'm kind of keeping involved with everything?
Right. Well, and I think that, certain things that used to work on Facebook, for instance, like have lost a lot of the kind of traction they used to. Parties have really dwindled in terms of efficacy. Even a lot of the groups that used to host them are stopping doing that. And, things like that. It can be really challenging to sort of find ways to get the word out and not sort of just be a whisper in the crowded, Facebook sphere or whatever. And again, a lot of it definitely is algorithm based and whatnot. And
Yeah.
then there's also, of course, like you're competing with AI stuff getting into the mix and,
Mhm.
spammers and various I mean, I get on the daily emails,
Oh God,
Instagram requests, all
constant.
that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
constant. Yeah, like I mean, I haven't been doing this as long as you by any stretch of the imagination, but just in the past like year alone, like it's
Yeah.
gone from like rare every now and again to like almost like daily.
Mhm.
And sometimes multiple ones in a day. And I'm just like, and I just have got getting into this like report spam
Mhm.
block, kind of like it's this automated response because it's so chronic. So yeah, I do think that it is changing. But I think that like you definitely have a real gift for marketing. I mean, everything that I've seen that you kind of put out, whether on Instagram or anything along those lines, you definitely have a lot of panache with the marketing. Do you have background experience in that you bring to the table?
I absolutely do. Before I was full time, that was my day job is being a marketer.
Yeah.
I worked not in books. I
Yeah.
actually worked for a company that did marketing for automotive dealerships. So we
Oh,
would make their
sure.
marketing that they gave, would send to you to the populace.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I did that. That was basically not my right out of college job, but like I had a year at a different place,
Yeah.
and then eventually, and it was a great company to work with. Always
Mm.
very supportive,
Hmm.
knowing that eventually one day I wanted to leave. The hope
Yeah.
was a 5 year plan, and it became an over 10 year plan, as it usually
Yeah.
goes. But I definitely think I bring some of that, that past into it, and kind of knowing what looks good and having a certain amount
Mm.
of graphic design capabilities, and
Hmm.
knowing the language, because knowing how to write is different than knowing how to use marketing language. They are very different.
Mm.
Not to say that
Right.
I'm the end all be all. Like I always encourage people to steal from each other, and please go ahead and steal
Yes.
from me. Like if you
Mm.
see something and say, "Ooh, that's a cool idea." Like even
Right.
my PA, she works with tons of other authors. If she ever goes, "Ooh, that's a really neat one this week," and I'm like, "Go ahead, you steal it, use it for your other authors." I
Right.
mean, that doesn't hurt us to help
Right.
each other with those ideas. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that um especially in such a much more niche category of romance, right? Like I feel like I mean it's growing, obviously, especially
Oh
with
yeah.
like the recent success of like Heated Rivalry and the
Yes.
Red, White, and Royal Blue a few years ago. And so I think that we are growing, certainly, particularly in the realm of MM and MM plus and all of that. Um but we're still pretty small potatoes compared to the massive heterosexual romance
Yes.
category.
Oh yeah.
So I do think that one of the nice things about that is I think sometimes it's maybe a little bit easier to get seen by the people who are looking for our stuff. And I think that there is a lot more, at least I have experienced a lot more camaraderie. Most of us are really trying to lift each other up, not taking on a kind of mean girls competition based type of approach, right? Um, I know that for me, and I'm a type 8 on the Enneagram, which, if anybody knows what that is, like my only competition is ever myself. Like that's just how my brain works. Like I'm always trying to one up myself, and that's a fun game for me to play. I know that's not always like the case for other people, but how do you kind of look at sort of when you're trying to take what you're doing in new directions, or if you want to like level up in something, like what motivates and drives you and kind of like inspires you?
I'm a big just consumer of fiction in all its
Mm,
forms. So I'm a
yeah.
huge geek. And ever since I was a little
Same.
kid, I'm all about video games. Like I play video games like
Mm,
crazy,
wow.
specifically like story focused
Yeah.
RPG or role playing games
Okay.
are my bread and butter. I still play it. Like I play individually, and then my husband and I, there's certain games, if we know we'd only play through it once, we play it together
Oh,
then. We'll
nice.
just
Yeah.
exchange the controller depending on who wants to be in control at that
Yeah.
time. And movies, like I'm a
Mhm.
big go to the movies
Oh,
person.
nice. Yeah.
So not just, consuming, books in the genre, like I
Yeah.
consume fiction everywhere I possibly can
Hmm.
because I can't tell you how many times I come out of the movie theater or we finish like a really heartfelt series or a really great scene in a video game and it's like I
Yeah.
just feel inspired. Not
Yeah.
necessarily, oh, I want to do that, but that
Right. Right.
I need to write right now. Like I
But
need to go sit
it
down.
sparks something, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Um, I mean, I think they refer to this as sort of like filling the creative well, right? And it's a little bit different for every person what works for that, but I'm very similar. It's reading, watching, listening to other stories. I mean, I've also always been a story person like you. I was the kid who was like, we are not playing on the playground. We are on a fantasy quest to catch the evil wizard. Like I mean, like that's how I was as a kid. And I would have like elaborate plans for, I mean, sometimes the other kids would just be like, this is too much, goodbye. Like, but I'd be like, okay, well, I will just keep playing the story in my head. So for me, it's always, yeah, getting inspiration from watching other stuff. And for me, it's often kind of more about because I'm a mood reader watcher. So like if I'm in a mood for something and then I enjoy that kind of narrative, it will spark a mood to write something in the same mood, but not necessarily the same type of story, right? So yeah, I think it's really fascinating how we each kind of find different sources of inspiration to create. But I think, humanity, one enduring thing about us is that we love to tell stories, and that's, been around from the beginning, basically. So, well, speaking of stories, tell me a little bit about your latest release. So this
Mm.
is in your kind of pantheon of the gods and everything. Yes, The Last Dancer of the Egyptian Sky. I love that you have been using the same artist for all of these covers
Mhm.
because their work is just like mwah, chef's kiss, right?
Oh, so good, so good. And such a
Yes.
great artist to work with, like so intuitive.
Mm,
Like by the
yeah.
time we got to this cover, it was like
Mm,
I had no notes on the first draft of
right.
the sketch. It was like you just know what I want now. Like not that I
Right.
had many notes, honestly, on the first
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Usually it was more like, oh, color and oh, can you change that wine to mead because it was the Norse one, little stuff like
Right.
that. Like for the most part, it was you captured what I wanted so perfectly.
Mm,
And oh my God, like now it's just like second nature. And I'm still
right.
waiting actually to get the paperback so that I can send them,
Ooh,
here's your copy. You get one for free because
right.
you did all the
Yeah.
work to make this so
Yeah.
memorable.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, collaborating with cover artists is always really fun and fascinating as an experience. But tell me a little bit about what this particular story is about.
So one thing I always want to try to make people understand about this series is it's only thematically linked. They are
Yeah.
not
Okay.
at all connected. I mean, I guess
Mm,
theoretically it could be the same universe with the different pantheons, but they don't
right.
interact. You don't need to
Okay.
read one to read the other. You can jump
Yeah.
in at any
Oh,
point, doesn't
nice.
matter. Because for people who might be familiar with the first one was Last Courtesan of Olympus, which was Greek
Hmm.
mythology. It was
Yes.
very much why choose that character. Like it
Mm,
wasn't, I don't consider it a romance because he does not end up with someone.
yeah.
Versus when I did Last Thrall of Asgard, the Norse one, it
Mm,
was similar kind of tonally, but there was
yeah.
still this like underlying, oh, Loki was clearly, and this is not a spoiler, Loki is clearly meant to be the end game romance, and he is. So he
Mhm.
did still end up with somebody.
Yeah.
Now, this one, since I was doing this, I'm like, okay, I want it to be this push of eroticism for all of them, sure, but I
Yeah.
did not
Yeah.
want it to just be this palette swap, the same story told with a different coat of
Right.
paint.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to do something very different for the Egyptian one, which is Last
Mhm.
Dancer. And so my idea for this one is that, and actually I can point it out on the cover, is that our main character here, Nakht, notice how he's looking to and holding one particular hand. This is not representative of a godly hand. This is his mortal human lover. So
Mm.
they start as an established couple where I
Oh.
open very much where it's like you're seeing this beautiful romance between these people that has already been blossoming for years and years and years.
Mm.
And in the prologue, I cut you off right at the end with it, where his lover Meryt is killed. And so
Oh,
that's very much meant to be an upfront, not a spoiler thing. Like
yeah,
there is
yeah,
temporary character death, main character death here. And then
yeah.
it's him just going through despair and the gods calling on him saying, well, if you can prove your love and you
Mm.
can go through our trials,
Mm.
resisting the things we offer you, though not resisting the pleasures necessarily. That goes a little bit differently. If he can prove his love and resist the right things, then he can have him back. Now, what that might look
Mm.
like at the end of the book, that part I won't spoil.
Yeah,
But
right.
it's also a dual narration where we're also seeing
Mm.
Meryt, the one who is deceased from the
Yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
We get to see him going through his own underworld journey at the beginning of each
Ooh.
chapter, where he's reliving his life from the end to the beginning.
Right.
And so it kind of like matches up in that way. And I had so much fun doing this one because it was so different, and I had to play with
Mm.
the type of eroticism and how I wanted it to come across so differently. Plus, with the Egyptian gods, it's such a different type of mythology. Like the research for this
Right.
one was so much fun, and
I
choosing which
bet.
gods I was going to focus on. Like
Yeah.
I have told more than one person this is my favorite of the series, hands down. It's
Mm.
also the longest, which probably
Ah,
says a
ha,
lot
ha.
right there too,
Ha, ha,
by
ha.
quite a bit actually, because
Mm.
Courtesan was around 67,000 words.
Mm.
Thrall was a little shorter because it was missing one god, like there were fewer gods.
Oh, sure.
And so that one was only around like 56. This one's 80,000 words, which I know doesn't break the bank for some people, but is
Sure.
longer in the
Yeah.
series.
Okay. Yeah, so I was going to ask a little bit, like I'm guessing you had to kind of do quite a bit of research looking into all these different mythologies. I took a Greek mythology course in university and undergrad way back in the day, and I really loved it, because again, it's storytelling. It's all
Mhm.
storytelling really when you're learning mythology. But I haven't studied as thoroughly any of the other sort of mythologies. So particularly kind of when looking into the Egyptian one, sort of where did you go for some of your research on that? And then like how did you bring in also any kind of like cultural sensitivity readers or anything like that, especially when you're dealing with mythologies particular to other countries and cultures?
So back with the Greek one initially too, that's one
Mm.
I also had this much more background in. Like I felt like an expert, and then when I was, going and digging into it, I'm like, oh man, there's so much more that I don't
Yeah,
know. When
yeah.
when I did the Norse one, what's so
Mm.
interesting about that is people might not realize we actually don't know a lot because this was
Mm.
verbal tradition
Yeah.
passed down, and then people not of the culture were trying to write it down
Mm.
based on how these people were telling the stories that had,
Right.
so you were getting some things wrong or some things that just change
Sure.
over decades and
Sure.
centuries. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of stories on that side we don't know. It's
Mm.
almost with the Egyptian, we almost know more or even too much because there's more of it, written down. We have the
Mm.
hieroglyphics, we have all these
Right.
stories that were kind of preserved, but
Yeah.
over such a long period of time, like we're talking
Mm.
thousands of years,
Yeah.
we don't have the same story that they told of Ra did not stay the
Mm.
same from the old kingdom to the new kingdom. Like
Right.
these gods evolved and
Right.
changed. So the
Hmm.
first things I had to decide was, okay, when am I kind of setting this so I can choose to
Hmm.
be as close to where that mythology was at the time, which I chose
Yeah.
New Kingdom. So I'd
Hmm.
have a lot more to play with. Because then
Hmm.
theoretically I could say, all right, even though it has evolved to this by the New Kingdom, maybe some of the old stuff was more correct in how I'm going to choose to interpret
Mm.
that God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or in the case of, so Ra is an interesting one that was fun to research because there's
Hmm.
Ra, there's Amun, and then there's Amun Ra, and they kind
Yeah.
of like evolved and changed and mixed together over time.
Hmm.
And so I used that as an opportunity to play with a character who is malleable. I made that one
Oh.
actually an intersex rep character, which I had
Yeah.
used for my Loki character in Thrall as well. Because
Oh,
it's like
cool.
this is a character that changes with what is believed about them.
Mm.
Like there was
Mm.
just so many ways. Like I feel like when we know less or when there's so much that there's multiple interpretations, there's a lot more
Right.
to play with.
Oh, for
So
sure.
it could get a little overwhelming as I'm like diving into different like
Mm.
physical sources and online sources. I'm like, okay, but this one contradicts this one, but since I'm doing a fictional account, what do I want? What positive things do I want to take
Right.
from it? And it
Right.
was just a lot of fun to do my like completely different takes on some of these gods than might be
Yeah.
expected. There was
Right.
one I knew I had to
Mm.
do Anubis as much like people envision him as possible because Anubis is kind of like fan favorite, right? Everybody knows Anubis. There's this vision you have in your head of what Anubis looks like. Like we all kind of have him in our minds. But with a lot of
Yeah.
the others, people don't even know them. So it was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can be really creative here and fun.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely some rabbit holes and times where I was like, wait, I think I contradicted myself and I said this about this crap. This is when editing is so important.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Editors to notice, wait a minute, I thought you said this God was this. And
Right. Right.
well, and then I did this in Thrall too, but in this one as well, I have a little mini glossary at the beginning
Oh,
where
nice.
I first point out this is my interpretation of these
Yes.
myths, but then I kind of explain with each god, this is how I'm seeing them,
Mm,
without spoiling
yeah,
some of the fun stuff that they'll
of
find out by reading, of
course.
course. But
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I'll be sure to, we'll put the link and everything in the show notes for folks. Now, is there already or going to be audio for this one as well?
yes, so it's this one is one that's contracted. Oh yeah, it is already official that
Oh, okay.
Nick Russo is doing the audio for this
Oh,
one.
nice. Okay.
Um,
Very cool.
because I had Michael Ferriolo did Last Thrall and Kevin Earlywine did Last Courtesan. And I
Yeah.
knew I wanted a different voice per book because they're
Sure.
disconnected. I thought
Yeah,
that made more
exactly.
sense.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Ram at Home, these are separate
Right.
and can be
Yeah.
enjoyed separately.
Right. Very cool. So in looking over kind of your very large backlist for 13 years, like it's really clear that you have written the gamut, like all over the place in terms of your interests and everything. Are there any kind of, I guess, maybe subgenres that you haven't written, but that you still want to write?
That's the funny thing. Is there any I haven't? There aren't too many. Oh well, I don't do a lot of contemporary, so my PA is
Yeah.
always saying hockey romance. I'm like, no, that is not, it's not for
I
me.
know.
But technically, I am working a little hockey nod into something later in the year.
Mm,
But it still has a paranormal aspect to it because it's just,
yeah.
again, I do occasionally do contemporary, but
Uh,
I'm a big geek, so I like living in
right.
fantasy, paranormal, sci-fi kind of worlds
Hmm.
instead. Or
Yeah.
like one of my favorite releases from last year was a serial killer romance that was like a dark, morally great
Oh,
romance.
sure.
So it's still a different take on like normal, contemporary, fluffy, whatever, right? Like that
Right.
was a lot of fun, but
Mm.
not what you'd think of as a normal contemporary story. So, I mean,
Hmm.
would I ever dabble more in other things? I do want to do more sci-fi. I know that's more where
Oh,
you live.
nice.
And
Yeah.
I have one that keeps
Mm.
getting pushed back because it's like
Girl, same.
it's the one book that doesn't have a deadline, so I
Yeah.
always can push it back.
Oh,
So I keep because I can do it
sure.
whenever. I have its cover. I
Mm.
know the whole story. I just need to actually write the prose version of it. And
Yes.
it's like I just keep pushing it back, but I am gonna have that sci-fi story because
That's
I kind of
great.
count. I have superheroes. I kind of count.
Yeah.
It's a little different than a normal fantasy or paranormal, so I kind of count that occasionally. But
Mhm.
I would say primarily I tend to steer toward the paranormal fantasy of it all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I love those too. I do some monster romance, paranormal stuff. I do have a very soft spot for sci-fi, particularly like rom-com sci-fi, because I
Mhm.
mean, I like the more serious. I like to read more serious sci-fi, but I don't typically write it. Like I'm more about kind of the lighter side of it all. But I do think that like this is a warning to all prospective authors out there. The dangers of buying the pre-made cover.
Oh
As
no, yeah.
you know, so you were talking about yours, and I was like, okay, so Amanda, my problem is also like I bought one from Natasha Snow. My God, I think it's like 2 years ago now. I love this cover. I got it. I'm like, and I saw it and I was like, I immediately had an idea, but it was not for a standalone. It was for a 7 book series. And I was like, I messaged her. I'm like, so I bought this cover, and so I'm gonna need six more eventually because it's gonna be this series. And she's like, no problem. And I still haven't gotten started on it because I've got all these other things that are like in the pipeline. So it's like, okay, it's in my 10-year plan. Like in another 2 years, I think I can get started on the first book. Like, but this is
I
the
have one
danger.
of those. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have one of those that I don't count my sci-fi one. I don't count as that because it's like it
Okay.
is
Okay.
going to happen. It's my
Okay.
baby. Like my blue key here that I
Yeah.
got. It's one of my first tattoos. This is
Yeah.
involved with that story. Like this is a childhood
Ooh.
story that has
Ooh.
evolved over time. Like it is going to
Yeah.
happen. And the cover I have is just it's illustrated and it's gorgeous
Oh,
and I love it
cool.
to death. And I'm pretty sure I teased a version of it to my Facebook group, but otherwise haven't, because I haven't
Mm.
written it yet. But I
Yeah.
do have one pre-made cover I bought from Delaney back in the day, Delaney Rain, who's
Yeah,
also an
yeah.
author. And like I saw it and I loved it and I fell in love with it. And Delaney, personalized it with my name and everything. And I don't even remember how long ago that was. Like that idea just didn't stick with me and it's sitting there.
Mm,
And I'm like, will I
right.
get to it? It's on that ever moving list of to-dos maybe someday. You have to go with what the muse wants.
Oh, I know. Yes, you do. You do. I'm not as bad as like I do know a few authors who like have double digit like pre-made covers bought that they
Okay, no, I'm
haven't
not that bad.
used yet. And I'm like, oh, I'm not in that territory. But it's like I have to be careful about looking at the pre-made covers because again, we talked about
Mm.
inspiration. I can see one and then sometimes it just like launches a whole because I tend to be more of a series writer than a standalone. So it's always like, oh no. you know and my editor is like, you cannot start any new series until you finish one. And I was like, okay. So I'm like, I'm trying
That
to.
is good advice because
It
when you try
is.
to juggle more than one, it is
It
always a bad
is.
idea.
It is. Yes. I highly advise listening to your editor if they're worth their salt. Like, yes. It took me a while to find mine. How about you? Like, how did you find, do you work with one? Do you have several? Like, how did you find a person that was a really good fit for you? Because it's not always the first editor you work
Oh,
with or try.
I think there's only one editor I worked with at one point that we weren't a right fit. Nothing against that particular editor. And initially I was working with amazing editors through the publishers I was with. And then I was doing a lot of like I have a lot of editing experience, so I love trading off with beta reading for authors to do some initial edits. So I'd always get some great initial editor feedback
Yeah.
from my peers.
Yeah.
And it was actually the editor I work with now, Green Wing Editing, that I love to death, and I will just stick with Katie forever if I can, if she continues to enjoy my works. It honestly was because she was a fan, a reader. She was
Mm,
on like she'd get ARCs and everything, and she'd be one
yeah.
of those ARC readers who would go, "Oh, I happen to catch these things," and would let me know.
Right.
Which, of course,
Right.
we please do
Oh
that.
my
We love that.
gosh,
I mean,
please.
you're not
So,
obligated to do it, but we love it when
yeah,
you do it. Thank you.
yes.
And I
Huge.
had said she caught so many great things, and this was her
Mhm.
not even trying, right? Just like
Right.
happened to catch them.
Yeah.
That I said, I absolutely would love to work with you at some point. And when I finally did start sending her stuff, it was like we mesh so well because her
Yeah.
brain thinks differently than me. I think that's such an important thing because you want someone who's going to
Mm.
look at things differently than you do and catch things in a
Yeah.
different way, or who's
Hmm.
still going to be a fan of your work without being afraid to tell you when something isn't working.
Yes. 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 Um, yeah, I've talked about this on the show a number of times, but the importance of being able to receive and utilize constructive criticism is sometimes one of the hardest things for newer authors. Um, I was an exception in this only because by day I am an academic, by night a fiction writer, but when you're an academic, you go through the peer review process in academic publications. So I was used to getting all kinds of constructive and sometimes, much harsher kind of feedback than you would typically get writing fiction. So I had much thicker skin for it, but it can be very hard, I think, for folks early on. So it's important to have that balance with it with an editor for sure. I will tell you a funny editing story. I don't know. I don't think I've ever shared this on the show before. Early
Ooh.
on, so this is I did a this new author boot camp thing. It was like a virtual event, and they included like you would get some feedback from three different editors, right? And you just got like a first name for the editor, so you didn't really know who the editor was exactly. And so my first one. This is I'm sure you're going to get this as being a fellow geek on this front. I could tell she had to be a baby because like in the margin she's like, "What is a fox mulder? I've never heard of this before."
What is a, not who is, what is a
Right.
fox
What is
mulder?
a fox mulder? Like
Oh yeah,
I
you
was like,
must be.
"Oh, sweet summer child." Like
Mm.
I laughed and laughed for so I share that with certain writer friends because who get it because you know
Who's the right age group to know? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so for me, like finding an editor who actually knew all my sci-fi and like geeky pop culture references was like a huge thing. Especially when you're doing stuff with humor. But
Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah. So okay, I always love to ask too, like, are there any genres you like to read that you don't write?
Oh, actually, no, this came up the other day because what were we? Oh,
Mm,
I went and saw Hail Mary, which is
okay.
fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
I read The Martian before seeing The Martian. I have
Mm.
now seen Hail Mary and I want to read it.
Oh, okay.
But it was one of those times where I went, "Oh, such just it's really great." But I
Yeah.
realized that I like to consume things that have no romance in them. Like I almost prefer, like when
Mm.
I'm consuming, not all the time, obviously I enjoy my romance and I'll get giddy, especially when it's
Yeah.
like peers and we're sharing stuff.
Right.
But like I actually really love consuming not necessarily nonfiction, sometimes, but
Mm.
just other story, mystery, sci-fi, whatever it may be, where there is
Yeah.
no romance, not even an inkling of it
Mm.
whatsoever. Which I always think is so funny. Like I'm that person
Yeah.
who will consume something, watch a movie, whatever it is, and be like, "Ugh, they had to shoehorn in the romance." And I'm a romance writer. Uh, and maybe that's why, right? It's like
Yeah.
I live there so much of the time that I actually enjoy
Right.
not always getting that when I'm consuming other types of media and other types of books. It just kind of
Right.
depends.
Right. Yeah, I think as a queer person myself, like I think I have a lot more of an eye rolling with it with like what I feel like are very forced heteronormative like
Mhm.
romantic resolutions, often with like a much older man and a much younger woman kind of scenario. Like Hollywood certainly loves to do that, but I am a real sucker for like a good queer romance, even just a subplot
Mhm.
that will keep me going. I have to admit that's kind of what made me stop watching Buffy way back in the day was
Oh,
after
yeah.
yeah, after Tara was killed. Yeah,
Yeah,
anyways,
it
I'm
doesn't
sorry.
count as spoilers anymore. It's been,
Spoiling.
30 years,
It's been
whatever,
out
20
forever, but
years.
like,
But
but yeah,
no,
that
yeah.
was like yeah, that was really devastating to me. But that's the whole, kill your gays problem with like
Yeah.
TV and film in general. But yeah. Well, I know we're getting close to the end of our conversation here, and I always love to ask authors who are on the show, what can we sort of expect coming from you in the pipeline, whether we're talking books, audiobooks, or potentially upcoming appearances?
Well, actually, audiobook wise, my next audiobook, so my Tales from the Gemstone Kingdom series has slowly, finally been coming out in audio. It's a week from tomorrow.
Okay,
Stitches, which Stitches is sort of the fan favorite of the series. The
nice.
audio for that one is coming out. That one is the same narrator for the whole series. I
Oh,
think he's
cool.
he's newer to the genre, but I love his voice. He's
Mm.
um I don't want to assume which country, but definitely English, UK, some
Yeah,
sort, British
yeah.
of some sort. And does just like, and because I wanted an English accent for this series since it's
Yes.
high fantasy and it just felt right.
Mm. Yeah.
And oh my, he's just Val Carradine, just amazing. I
Mm.
love him so much. He did such a fantastic job on Ice King. And Stitches comes out next week on Tuesday,
Nice.
so I'm really excited for that.
Yeah.
The biggest, like one of the series that I'm most excited for is one of those collaborations
Yeah.
because canon sucks, and it's literally about fan fiction in a way.
Oh,
So
fun.
yeah, this is AM Rose's baby, and it is the
Yeah.
coolest idea ever. I was on board from the get-go. So the concept
Mm.
is They wrote, for people who don't know, A.M. Rose is a duo authorship, and they wrote Canon, which is a short story, but the characters at the end, it's contemporary set. The characters at the end don't exchange information, so there's no way they could actually get back together, ever see each other again.
Yeah.
Like it's a romance that'll never happen. And so the idea is all of us authors then are like, well, that sucks. We can't
We're gonna
have
fix
that.
this.
I'm going to fix this. It's the fix it idea. But we're all doing a different alternate universe or AU
Ooh,
idea
yeah.
around these characters. So
Ooh.
since AM started with canon, they are writing the first book, which is a Dragon AU. I'm
Ooh.
second. I have Robot AU, which I'm very excited
Ooh.
about.
Ooh, we
And
don't
I
have
mean,
enough robot ones. I'm
I know.
excited about this.
So hey, oh my God, what was I just saying? That I need to do more sci-fi. I'm literally writing it right now. Even I forget while I'm in the middle of it. Because we've announced the series, that's all out, but we have not done the true cover reveals yet. Those will be
Yeah.
coming soon within the next like month or two. Because they start coming out in June is when they actually
Okay.
release.
Mm.
It's a great lineup of authors. Like, just I'll
Mm.
forget to name them all, but it's a great. I think there's 11 of us total,
Oh,
but just
nice.
fantastic. But yeah, because Canon Sucks is the actual like group name of it.
Yeah.
And one thing that's really fun about this is we've all just ended up like we kind of started on our own, and now we're for
Mhm.
sure all doing it, getting artwork of our characters, and so like we have
Ooh.
all some have revealed theirs so far. I'll be revealing mine
Yeah.
soon, and we're all using like different artists too. So it's just
Oh,
fun seeing
fun.
like the idea of seeing the same characters interpreted different ways, just
Yeah.
like the experience of fan fiction. And so
Wow.
we're doing it in a way where we're having author's notes in our chapters. We're
Mm.
playing it as if we've posted this to archive of
Yeah.
our own. Like we're
Right.
playing
Right.
it like that. And it is just so much
That's
fun.
cool.
Like it's bringing me back to my roots. Like I just love it. So I'm super excited for that. Mine comes out, I want to say it's June 17th is when mine
Mm.
releases. We don't have set dates yet for the cover
Yeah.
reveals, but I've seen my covers, so I know what it looks like.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's just so much fun. I'm very excited about that one.
Mm-hmm.
I have way too many other things to even think about coming out the rest of the year.
Hmm.
Um, the rest of my Gemstone Kingdoms audio should continue to trickle
Very
out.
cool.
I'm also doing a few more recovers of older books.
Yeah.
One more I'll mention is I have one of my fan favorite short stories.
Hmm.
Speaking of octopi, with the little
Ooh.
which I found this brewery that got this glass from after this book came out of mine.
Okay.
But I have Octopi, My Heart is the short story.
Right.
And it's just a little contemporary cover I made myself, is what's on
Yeah.
it, but I
Sure.
love it
Sure.
so much. And I really wanted all of my fantasy paranormal stuff to have illustrated covers. So
Hmm.
I commissioned the most fantastic art imaginable that I have not revealed yet to
Ooh.
redo that concept. And it's so good. I went, I can't just, not that it would be a waste, but I can't just waste this on this short story. I need to expand on this. So I'm planning on basically
Ooh.
doubling its word count when I re-release it.
Nice.
Like my editor, Katie, from Green Wing Editing, actually was like helping me hash out ideas of where I could potentially
Mm.
add stuff. And like, I
Yeah.
think I can double it. Maybe not
Yeah.
like crazy full length, even
Yeah.
50,000.
Yeah.
It might only be 30 or 35 at max.
Yeah.
We'll see. But I'm excited for that just because it is my sweetest, but still has tentacle sex going on kind of story. And I'm just excited to give it new life and share the art with that one.
Yeah.
With that one's kind of a more malleable release date because I'll see when I get it done. I need to
Right.
focus on deadlines, you know how it goes.
Of course.
But
Of
believe me,
course.
when that starts getting shared, you'll definitely see some fun tentacle art.
Oh, fun, fun. Yeah, I think an increasing number of authors are starting to use a lot of this commissioned art, like beyond covers,
Yeah,
essentially the equivalent
character
of
stuff.
paid fan character art, right?
Mhm.
Um, but so how do you go about finding your artists? And like, I have heard widely varying price scales, like in
And
terms of
that is
like,
true.
but bonkers stuff, like I like sometimes like $400 or $500 for like a single illustration, and I was just sort of like, whoa. So, how did you kind of like dip your toes into that and, find folks to work with that were, credible?
For the character art stuff, which I've only just
Mm,
recently kind of started to play
okay.
with, really, I was just, hitting up peers. Like I would see
Mm,
someone with character art and go, I love that style. That style would be perfect for
right.
this one, but this
Yeah,
style would be perfect for this one. I
right.
also, because I go to so many conventions, I
Mm,
meet a lot of artists. And so I'm actually talking to
mm,
these people in
that's
person.
handy.
So I
Yeah.
love commissioning people like that.
Yeah.
I worked with Rainbow Crate on a
Oh,
special edition. Oh, actually, I can quickly grab it.
ooh,
On
yeah,
a special edition of my
yeah.
last Pharaoh. For people who might, Rainbow Crate is a book box, but they did a
Yeah.
special
Oh,
edition of my
pretty.
Norse one. And we
Oh,
did, because they did it and they order, the more copies you order of something, the lower the cost per book. And
yes.
because I wanted to make sure they still used some of the original art right,
Wow,
that
yeah.
saves them on commission. So I was able to do extra special art for the
Ooh,
interiors.
oh, wow.
So I will
Wow.
give the clue that this amazing artist, I always think of him as just Gabe, and I won't be able to think of his actual like handle, is doing the art for that tentacle one, Occupy My
Oh,
Heart.
nice. Oh, that's
And so some
beautiful.
of it, working with these people, I just, I worked with them individually. So I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, I would like to use you
yeah.
again. Most of them had
Right.
worked with Rainbow Crate in the past, and they were
Yeah.
just, all of the artists I worked with through them were fantastic. And so I just kind of have this list now, right? Here's
Yeah.
people peers have used that were great, ones I've used in the
Mm,
past. I start following people on Instagram who has a
yeah.
commission page.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And it's true though, like some way undersell themselves, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like the amount of quality you get, and you get to
Mhm.
see, here's the sketch. Like, there is no
Right.
AI involved here.
Right.
And they'll charge like under $100 for this
Oh, wow.
mural masterpiece. And
Yeah.
then you'll have some where you're spending $1,000 for something. But for
Right.
me, it's just, is it worth it? Does it look worth it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if they're underselling themselves, I'm gonna give them a little bump when they
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
me
Right.
their invoice because it's
For
like
sure.
it's nice to be able to save money here and there,
Yeah.
but some of
Yeah.
them it's like, oh, you can definitely charge more for how good your work
Right.
is.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, I think, I'm sure for many of them, it's a tough market for them too, especially with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
AI these days. But yeah, I always, I believe in paying creators what they're worth. That's why I hire, humans for everything, for my narration, for my cover art, all of that. And yeah, I think that everybody has to make their own decisions about that, but I think that, at least for me, ethically and as a creative myself, I think it's just kind of it's important to do and to value that so we don't lose it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm ac I'm actually kind of, oh no, I probably should mention too. I won't mention where it comes from, but there's this
Mm,
whole idea of dead internet theory
mm,
where the
mm.
more AI is being fed all these things, eventually it starts feeding itself what it's already produced, and then you get a
Oh,
deterioration of what's actually
oh,
out there. So the
I
more crap
believe
that's
it.
out there, the less real stuff it has to work from. So the generative
Right,
stuff just keeps declining.
right.
And so there's about a million reasons why it's bad,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
that
yeah.
is one to think about that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I'm sure we could have a whole episode where we talk just
Oh,
about
Lord.
that. But we're out of time, so I want to respect the your time and my time and all of that. But thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's always a pleasure. And to our viewers, um, I will be back next month with another fantastic interview, so stay tuned. Thanks so much.